Welcome back, Muktananda. It's Monday.
Yes, it's wonderful to be here.
Yes. I thought today, given that it's a pertinent presence in my life right now, we can talk about fear. Okay. I we all know the experience of fear. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but my sense is that we all experience it probably daily in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just the fear that we conjure in our own minds through our thoughts, right? Our anxious energy, our worries, or certainly if we tune into the news at all, that is very fear inducing. But I would like to explore, I would like to understand fear better, how we work with it. It's something that I work with a lot of my clients around and also within myself. And in fact, you and I just had a session around it just an hour before we got on this call. So can you speak a bit to the energy of fear, maybe its origins, maybe you want to touch on the ego mind and how that differs from the higher self or the understanding of the essence of who we are. And let's just go there and flow with that a little bit, because I know it will bring up some additional questions that we may all have.
Well, I think fear, from an energetic point of view, is a lower frequency energy. So the question really is, and where do we source? Where does it source from? Is it coming from a lived experience we've had in this lifetime, or is it a combination of this lifetime and perhaps past lifetime samskaras that are driving our behavior without necessarily us being fully aware of it? And then sometimes it's very crystal clear, okay? We're walking along, we're hiking, and we hear the sound of a rattlesnake. Our attention awakens. Okay, we might be facing some danger here. Okay, so I mean, the question covers a wide range of possible responses. But let's just say it's a lower frequency energy that is either grounded, means we have a very good basis for feeling fear and we behave accordingly, or there's no rational basis for it, whatever, but it's still driving us.
Yeah. So let me clarify, because that's a really good, important distinction. I am not speaking of what I call like functional. We should be afraid of a rattlesnake because we don't want to upset it. But the fear that we either create or is a continuation of what we have like seen or heard about in the outer world that now we're applying to ourselves as a point of possibility, something we might see in the news. Oh my gosh, what if that happens to me? Or in a relationship, do I feel safe with this person? I don't feel safe with this person. I have fear about what might happen. Choose this or act in a certain way. So not really not the fear that's intended, that really has a purpose for keeping us safe, but more, and I know the purpose always is to keep us safe, but more of the mind, what we create, what we ruminate about, what we repeat as a patterned way of thinking.
Well, if we're going to speak of it that way, then fear linguistically is an assessment that something negative is going to happen to us.
Ooh. Linguistically, fear is an assessment that something negative is going to happen. I just like those words and that description. Good. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So then when you confront an assessment in that way, then you can learn to know, is your assessment grounded or is it ungrounded? if it's grounded, what are the standards for being legitimately fear or otherwise? What are the action? What has happened in the past that we can point to? Like if you're in an abusive relationship and you have been physically harmed, you know that's a situation that's going to trigger fear. Now, what can you actually do about that? Well, ideally, you get yourself out of that situation. I mean, this is just common sense. But that doesn't mean that you can project that fear. Let's say it's a man abusing physically a woman in some relationship, marriage or otherwise. Then you can obviously want to get out of that situation, but you may find yourself in it another one again. What is the unconscious pattern of behavior that has you attracting this situation into your life? What are the unconscious beliefs? What are the unconscious scripts or patterns that you're not aware of? So the first step in dealing with anything is awareness. Because if you're not aware of something, now you can be aware that you're being physically abused. I mean, I'm not talking about that's pretty obvious. But what's behind it? What thoughts, what beliefs, what actions are you holding that attract this to you? Then how do you actually become more aware of those patterns and those beliefs and shift them? Now that usually takes some kind of coaching or some kind of help from a therapist or otherwise that can help you become more aware in the moment and not keep repeating the pattern.
So to use your example, if somebody gets out of an abusive relationship and then enters into a relationship with a kind and gentle person, but brings with them the fear, let's just say their new partner gets a certain look on their face or in their eyes and it triggers something, but that it's not about that partner. They are not abusive. They are kind and gentle, but fear gets invoked in the person who's been abused. I'm curious. So, and they have awareness about that. So the first step is they're aware of having fear. How next do we, like, can fear be approached always and successfully from a place of logic? Like, I know that's there and let me see if I need it or not. And I know the answer to this and you do too. But go ahead.
Well, you can approach it logically, but it's not necessarily a logical emotion. Okay, fear is an emotion, right? Mm-hmm. And it gets triggered. And what triggers it, as you say, can be just a look that they associate with a past negative experience. And then they project that they're in it because it's somatic. They experience, okay, I'm in danger. Mm-hmm. Now, is the danger real or not? That's where, with some help, perhaps with some coaching or some therapy, you can learn to distinguish between, is this a real threat or am I just projecting something that's not there? But it has to be dealt with. You can't say the person is just making stuff up because the triggering is real for them. So, and the danger may be real too. So that, I mean, I would think that that's where you need to get some help to be able to see, is this a real danger situation? And then if it's another person, then the counseling or the therapy can work for both people. Yes.
Yes. And something that you said earlier in our conversation was that, because we were talking about a patterning of fearful thinking that I have with relation to a situation. And you said the way through that is for you to take a stand. So almost the antidote to fear is courage. I'm kind of summarizing. So if I'm misspeaking or not representing what you said accurately, feel free to totally redo it. And that has stuck with me because I think in many arenas of our life, I'm not speaking of those who are in abusive relationships or where there is true physical danger. But in the fearful ways, the stories that we tell ourselves that create more patterning of fear in our lives, which keep us small, playing a small game rather than being out there and really in our expansiveness. That the antidote to that is courage. Is that accurate?
Yes, to an extent. First, we established that there is no real danger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's no damage or harm that this person can do to you physically, and they can't damage your reputation. Okay, it's
Mm-hmm.
just an historical pattern that this person triggers. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so once you've established clearly that there is no physical, emotional, or damage to your reputation, then the question is, okay, first of all, become a different observer.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of look at this little triggering event happens. You get this email or you get this message, and all of a sudden, your body has this automatic response. You get triggered, and you can become a different observer and say, oh, isn't that interesting? Stephanie, you're stepping outside of yourself for a moment. Look at Stephanie being triggered. Isn't that interesting? That's like being consciously aware, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do? Take a deep breath. You take a moment not only to observe it in the moment, but then get centered in the moment. And depending upon the extent of how historically that has triggered you, you want to shift the body, because the fear resides within the body. So it resides in the muscles and the sinews and the cells, and once that gets triggered, everything moves into motion. So you've got to shift the body.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's a good thing for a person to get up and stretch, move around, go for a run, do something to move the body so that this embedded somatic way in which it's embodied really shifts. So there's no space for it. The space it usually occupies, you shift that space so there's no space in that moment for it to be occupied. And then once you've determined that there is no real danger, notwithstanding that the triggering is real, okay, what is courage? Courage, if you're not really afraid of something, to then take an action is not really courageous. It's courageous when you feel that there's some danger to you, real or imagined, and you act anyway. So what practice can you create that will look that fear in the eye and say, I'm not going to allow this to paralyze me? Because depending on what the circumstance is. So you can have ways of getting centered, shift the body, and then be in action. And this can all happen very quickly. Some people could get paralyzed for days. It can make them, they're not functioning. But you can learn over time with practice, observe it in the moment, and then shift.
Yeah. I know one of the things that I would like to do in my life that I do have some fear around is I would like to increase my activism in a more visible way, not simply behind the safety of my screen, talking about this cause or that cause and why I believe the way I do and what I support. But I would like to garner more courage to be out in physical presence with those who are in the marches. And I have some fear around that because, we've certainly seen that there's a danger to that. There's a physical danger to it. There's risk involved in it. And yet the call feels very strong now, and has been building for a while, to take more of a stand. So what do you recommend in those situations? Sometimes we can paralyze ourselves with what we imagine is the worst case scenario, and then we avoid that which we are wanting to actually experience, or really what our soul's part of our soul's purpose for being here, to be a voice for the voiceless, in my situation. So applying courage to that, aside from just show up to the marches, girl, what would you say is a way to work with that, and being, using awareness? What do you have there?
Okay, well, first of all, let's make a distinction between serving and helping.
Mm-hmm.
The distinction I make about serving is when we are aware of, aligned with, and fulfilling our dharma, our purpose for being in this physical body, in this particular dimension of time and space. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What is our mission? I call it our dharma. When we operate from that transcendent state, we aren't working from ego. We're working from higher self. That's, in fact, when we're operating from higher self, the only thing that really we can do is serve. And so what is the best and highest way for us to serve? That's the question. It's not about should or shouldn't. It's about what is in alignment with my dharma to serve. And then that's you act from that state, okay? Whereas help, in my distinction, so you have to realize I'm just making a distinction here. I'm not making a universal law. When I say help, it's more like from an ego place, okay? Not necessarily negative, but the ego wants to help out, okay? For whatever reason. So I always focus on service. What is my service to humanity? What is my dharma? And then you're either in alignment with it or you're not. But then you do whatever it is that you're meant to be doing without fear and without concern for an ego-based concern. That's why you're here. And when you hold that transcendent state, it becomes much clearer to you. Because who's having the fear? What are we fearing that we will lose? Our life? We're only here temporarily. Anyway, that doesn't mean we're frivolous. But what is it that we're actually fearing that could happen? What's the worst that can happen? We can lose our life? Well, now you have to look at other factors, right? You have young children. You want to be a responsible mother because that's part of your dharma, isn't it? You made that choice. You created these human beings. You have a responsibility, at least up to a certain age. And then, so you that's part of your dharma. You have to take that into account. So it's not like one answer that fits everything, but it's ultimately operating from your highest self and asking, what service am I being called to do? And then you do it.
Yeah. Thank you. You do. I was just remembering the last rally I went to was a couple of years ago, and it was for gun control, and it was in Parkland. And one of the high schoolers, well, she's now a college student, but leaders from that was president of the Parkland shooting, was leading the rally. And I remember feeling as a mother, like, is this responsible for me to go to a rally, given the state of the world right now and how many people have guns? And I had that twinge of fear, and I went and just decided I'll show up and see if I feel how I feel. and I will go based on that. I will either leave if I don't feel like it's safe for me to be there, or I'll stay. And I stayed, and it was a really beautiful experience. And you talking just kind of took me back and reminded me of that, because the hardest thing, it's kind of like going to the gym. The hardest thing was just getting out and going there. And then once I was there, you can, like you say, observe and feel and be aware of what the actuality of the situation is. A lot of times I find that the fear of my mind, it never manifests as anything real. It's always the tendency to go to worst case scenario. And if I did listen to it and I let it guide me, I can't imagine that I would ever leave my bedroom, honestly. So I just want to honor how much nobody is here but me. That just happened all on its own. I hear you, ghosts. I just want to honor each of us in our courage. Courage looks different ways, takes different forms. We get to celebrate it in all of its bigness and smallness. The tiniest steps can be very, very worthy of celebrating when it comes to our courage. And I find that we're at a time right now on a global scale where we must find our courage for the internal experience of expressing our lives and the truth of ourselves, and as well for, like you said, our dharma, our soul's work here to be in service to others, and whomever those others are. And it's different for all of us. Some of us are here to serve the planet. Some of us are here to serve humanity. Some of us are here to serve the animals, the soil, the families, our families, our communities. There's so many variations of it. And the invitation just to keep showing up as courageously as we can muster in any given situation or circumstance. That's what I extend to myself and to all of us, and to really honor and celebrate our successes there. Because sometimes just thinking about it is enough of a success. And then maybe the next day we'll take a step towards it or do it. But the urgency for us to show up is greater than ever. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. I think that if we look at it from a point of view of energy, as at this particular time, and the planet descends more and more to a lower frequency, or what some people would call into darkness, if we look at the impact of the degradation of the climate, we look at the widening wealth and power gap, we look at more and more people feeling disenfranchised. You look at, in this country, I think more than 50% of the people have more than one gun. Mm. You have the potential for descending into chaos, which can produce despair for a lot of people. Community is vital at this point, more so than ever. I think the only way that we're going to address some of these really existential threats, which are not figments of our imagination. We're seeing signs of it all around us. The importance of being in community is vital, because then we have that mutual support, because we can't do everything that we're going to be facing on our own, especially as I see the way the world is unfolding right now. So not have courage, but not alone. Be in community of like-minded people who are also here to not only serve the planet, but to serve each other, to help us deal with the kinds of challenges we're going to be facing.
Oh, such a great point. Yes, we are not meant to do this alone. There is such power in community. I have a dear friend who she has a very brave heart, but she doesn't always feel that she does. And she often asks me, what can I do? I have all this within, all this drive, all this desire to make a difference. And I don't know what to do. And the thing I keep coming back to telling her is, have you found your group yet? Your tribe, your sisterhood, your connections? Because they are already in the wave of service. We get to just kind of hop into that flow, right? We don't have to invent. In fact, there's nothing more to be invented. The solutions are there. We just need to fall in step behind those who are leading the way. And that happens through community and through trusting the leaders, supporting Black women, for example. We do not have, I as a white woman have no concept or solutions for them. They know what they need. I need to follow where they're going. I need to support them by shutting up myself, silencing and listening. And it's that way in the indigenous, for the indigenous tribes as well. They know how to care for this earth. We need to shut up, listen, and fall in step with how to live in harmony with nature. So much is out there waiting for us to engage in, inviting us to engage in, and doing so in community. You are right. Thank you for mentioning that. Absolutely most important piece, because I sense that what's being required also of us, not simply is to be an act of service, but to let go of so much of what we used to believe is true and what we still might believe is true, because we have to unlearn. This is the time of the greatest unlearning. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I would add that given the situation that we're in right now, women are playing a far more key role in leading humanity out of our current condition. We're talking about energy now. The energy of the planet is so imbalanced towards the masculine energy, which has resulted in the patriarchy, that we need to, women have to step forward and lead, and they are, and men have to make way for women, because they work and will lead differently than men. It's far more inclusive, far more participatory, and that is the foundation of any good community. That is essential.
Power to the women.
Yes.
Yes. Beautiful. Perfect. Well, thank you, Muktananda, for your time and for this scintillating conversation. Until next time, blessings to you.
Until next
Thanks,
time, yes,
Muktananda.
blessings to you
Bye-bye.
and everyone. Bye.